Jamie faces death in this week's Outlander. Diana Gabaldon discusses the episode's symbolic role reversals. Fans of Diana Gabaldon's series of Outlander books who are also fans of the TV series will be happy to hear that on Sunday night's Season 5 Episode 9 of the Starz series, the writers took a page from the Fiery Cross. This episode is one of my favorites from this season. Not just because it uses a lot of the scenes and dialogue from the book, but that always helps. The best-selling author jokes with Parade.com. The Monsters and Heroes episode begins with a rumor that there are bison in the area, so Jamie, Sam Hagen, puts together a hunting party, including Roger, Richard Rankin, Ian, John Bell, and Fergus, Caesar Damoy, in hopes of bringing back meat for the settlers at Fraser's Ridge. But just as he and Roger discover a herd and Jamie gets off a shot, the Scot is bitten by a venomous snake. And, even though Roger cuts open the wound and sucks out the poison, it looks as if Jamie might die. This section of the story hinges on roles, Gabaldon says. The roles we play, the roles we're born to fill, what happens when roles reverse and what happens when roles are reconfirmed, she continues. Jamie's always been the head of his family, in the most traditional 18th century ways. He protects them, feeds them, leads them and loves them. He knows that's his job, it always has been. But half a second of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and suddenly he's out of action. And in the same instant, his son-in-law Roger is suddenly required to take over. Fate seldom gives fair warning. In this role reversal, where Roger is the caretaker, as the two men wait for daylight in hopes of making the journey back to Fraser's Ridge in Claire's, Katrina Balfe, ministrations, there is nothing for the two men to do but talk, providing Jamie the opportunity to tell Roger that he is sorry that he saved Stephen Bonnet's, Ed Speleer's, life and his fear that now that Jocasta, Maria Doyle Kennedy, has named Jimmy as heir to River Run that Bonnet will come after the boy, whom he thinks is his son. Roger has been slowly defining his own role in a world that he never expected to inhabit, Gabaldon points out. The only role he was looking for was that of husband. But being a father is an additional role he welcomes, and even though the aforementioned fate snatched away his most important tool, his voice, he's doggedly fought his way back from disaster to reclaim his place in his family. And just when it seemed that Roger was on the road to finding a new normal, he faces an all-new challenge, one that involves his father-in-law, whose approval he is still hoping to win. Along with Jamie's reveal of his fears about Bonnet, he tasks Roger with carrying out a mission Roger isn't sure he is up to, saying the son, or in this case, son-in-law, must pay for the sins of the father. Roger lies through a long, long night, keeping watch over his likely dying father-in-law, desperately trying to absorb Jamie's last advice and the news that there's a plan to kill Stephen Bonnet, a mission that will be Roger's, if Jamie does die, Gabaldon continues. She quotes a section from the Fiery Cross. It wouldn't be enough, he thought, and a dull fear settled in the pit of his stomach, an aching dread that underlay the sharper pangs of grief. He couldn't do it. Christ, he couldn't even shoot a thing the size of a house. And now he was meant to step into Jamie Fraser's shoes? Keep order with fists and brain, feed a family with gun and knife, tread the tightrope of politics over a lighted powder keg, tenants and family all balanced on his shoulders? Replace the man they called himself? Not fucking likely, he thought bleakly. While their husbands are off hunting, Claire and Brianna, Sophie Skelton, discuss how difficult it is for both Roger and Brianna to find their place in the 18th century. Brianna is an engineer, who attended MIT, and Roger is a historian, a teacher. There really are no equivalents at Fraser's Ridge. Claire reassures her daughter that if she can't return to the future, if Jimmy is unable to go through the stones, that both Bree and Roger will find a purpose. While this conversation defines their own roles and desires, and explicates the theme of the episode, it's essentially a Greek chorus to the more urgent roles that Jamie and Roger are playing out in a dark forest nearby, Gabaldon adds. The next morning when Jamie and Roger's horses return to Fraser's Ridge riderless, Ian organizes a rescue party to search for them and bring them home. They find Roger struggling to carry Jamie home on a stretcher. Even after Jamie is rescued, it looks as though the only role he's fit to play is first corpse in the family plot. Poor old Laish Farrell's stolen remains are probably rotting quietly in the woods somewhere, Gabaldon says. But Claire has roles, too, and she's playing both of them to the hilt, healer and wife. And now the conflict passes from Roger to her. How can she not do everything she can to save Jamie's life, even if that means maiming and crippling him? And as his wife, how can she do something he's made her swear not to do? That something is Jamie's refusal to allow Claire to amputate his leg even if that is what it will take to save his life. When Ian hears this, he reads Jamie the riot act, telling him he has never before been ashamed of his uncle, but he is now. Jamie has two examples in his life of men who have survived amputations. Ian's father lost his leg and Fergus lost his hand, and they are braver men than he. Claire also shares her concern with Brianna. If she amputates Jamie's leg, every time he looks down and sees it missing, he will be reminded she didn't keep her word to let him die. This spurs Brianna into action, especially when Roger shows her the head of the snake that bit Jamie. Finally, Brianna's nascent role as an engineer buds into life, when her invention saves her father's life and by extension, preserves the lives of all the people who need and depend on him, Gabaldon says. It's a neat circle that leaves everyone, mostly, intact, emotionally and physically, and has lifted Roger into a new role within the family. Once on the road to recovery, Jamie shares with Claire that she was the one thing that could bring him back, especially her touch. The final joining of the circle comes when Jamie, on the point of death, and wanting to go, leave his pain-racked body and find peace, makes his final decision, to pick up the cross God gave him and carry it on for the sake of those who need him, Gabaldon concludes. Helpless, he chose to return, to pain and difficulty, in order to fulfill the role he knows God gave him, to protect those for whom he's responsible.